And welcome back to another episode of the Business and Banter Podcast. We're back for another week. I just want to firstly say thank you to everyone for all the comments we got on last week's episode. Apparently, Sam was very profound. Like, she was inspirational and profound, and she blew people's minds. And now you know what I feel like all the time, because every time Sam speaks to me, it's just like new doors opening.
I appreciate that, but I don't see it like that. I just say what I think.
If you're new here or you're just listening for the first time, my name is Hanley. I'm a car part reseller from Scotland, and Sam is a clothing reseller from the middle of nowhere in the bush in Australia.
Yeah, and it's nice and hot and you're nice and cold.
Yes, and although we've got sunshine today, it's quite odd. Something must be in the water. From our conversations last week, I actually listened back to last week's one, because I too, while you were talking, I don't know if people can notice, but while you were talking, my mind was going like a mile a minute. I was just so intrigued by everything you said. And one of the things that I think isn't talked about enough, or we don't realize enough, was your comment you made about the input and output. And so today we thought we'd dive a little deeper into Sam's mind regarding... Yeah.
I don't know if you want to go into my mind.
Strap in, people. Going for a ride. Do you guys have the Magic School Bus in Australia? The TV show?
Yeah, we did when I was growing up.
Yeah. So let's get on a Magic School Bus and we'll go into Sam's brain.
Good luck. It's just a monkey with a symbol.
I think our conversation last week about having to take inflation into consideration in the changing world and think that relates really strongly to the concept of your input versus your output, because at the end of the day, we are in control. We are in control of how much we earn when we do have our own businesses and we are self-employed or we consider ourselves business owners. Then a lot of the time we have a hand in the factors that's going to control our desired outcome. And so people will say, well, how do you keep up with the times? How do you keep up with inflation? It's up to us and the input we put in to be able to manage that the outcome and the output of this is, and its ability to keep up with that.
Yeah, absolutely. And just taking it back to what you said before, to be able to grow and everything else, we need to be accountable to that as well. Yeah. So I think that's really important. So in terms of input output, I guess we kind of brushed on it last week when I said about having a 9 to 5. If you break it down further, you have 8 hours of earning potential ever. You're only ever going to go there to a job to earn 8 hours worth of pay. Maybe you get overtime that's paid. A lot of people don't. A lot of people just voluntarily give that time. Then you have to travel back and forth. Some jobs, there's the option for sales, or maybe you get a commission on something, and that's only if the boss doesn't stiff you at the end of it and say, well, it actually didn't settle for as much as we thought it would, so you don't get that really nice commission. So all of it is really outside of your control in that regard. You don't even write the award or the enterprise bargaining agreement for your pay increases. You don't even have the luxury of being able to beg for a pay increase in Australia. It's wild. Whereas on eBay, we have all the control there.
So in a 9 to 5 or being an employee, it does provide security, but it's a very limited security. And I said this to you when my issue came up with us having to buy the house in a very short period of time. I actually said to you, thank goodness I have my own business, because if I was in a 9 to 5, I would be screwed. There would be no way I could come up with that money. Because what am I going to go do? Am I going to go ask my boss, can I just work 24 hours a day for the next 3 weeks so I can get £45,000?
Yes, that can happen.
That is not going to happen. Our options are so limited, and I understand that for some people, being an employee provides much needed security, but you can also build security into your business by being accountable, by managing your input.
So just to segue for the 45,000 for a second, what's the average hourly wage just for an entry-level job in the UK? Approximately. Okay, I'll just make one up. Let's say it's £20, 25, somewhere around there.
I think it's actually 16, 17.
Okay, let's go 16.
Yeah.
So you'd have to work 2,812 hours, which over an 8-hour day, so say you're doing overtime, of 8 hours on top of your 8-hour shift, that's 351 days. And that's not even accounting for weekends. So if you did that 5 days a week, that's 70 weeks. So you wouldn't physically have been able to come up with the amount of money that you needed in a really short period of time working for a job, even if you worked every hour that you weren't sleeping. It's physically
And then also, you'll get tax deducted off that. And I know we pay tax as businesses, but there's better ways to manage a tax as a business. And it's just completely unattainable to do that type of thing. So I think...
Sorry, you go.
I just wanted to say that I think what we don't realize a lot of the time is that, yes, if we don't manage the effort we put in the input, then our income can become unstable. But on the flip side, if you manage it, then you can actually build a really stable business and you can choose your income.
Yeah, so I know a mistake I made at the very beginning was not having a target. So I just wanted money. I didn't have like a set amount of money that I wanted to receive every week or every day. And then I didn't know my true bottom line for the numbers to be able to know how many sales I needed to be able to do that. And then even on top of that one, I didn't know what I needed to input into the machine to be able to get those sales out on the other end. And it was only when I really broke down those numbers and realized if I don't set the goal for the output, the money, if I set the goal for the input, then the output will take care of itself as long as I am accountable to what I'm listing. So I can't just go list garbage because that won't work either.
On another note, it took me a whole 6 minutes and 43 seconds to understand why I couldn't see you. And then I remembered to put my glasses on.
I thought you had contact lenses in.
No, I was like, why did I think he was squinting? And then I was like, oh, my glasses.
I also thought you had something in your eye because you kept rubbing them.
I know, because I was like, what's going on? Anyway, apologies for the detour there. That was odd. I lost my train of thought.
Yeah, you've derailed completely, haven't you?
I'm so sorry. I wish I had a conspiracy about eyeglasses because this would have been a perfect place to put it in, but I don't. If anyone know of any conspiracies of eyeglasses, I'd be very interested in that. Drop in the comments. But getting back to being in control of our business. My apologies, people. That was. I couldn't understand what was going on.
I love that.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't realize.
So let's just try and salvage this by saying, let me ask you, how do you set your goals so that you maintain the finances that you wanted? So when you were at 45,000, that was the target and the goal. What did you do to work backwards to be able to achieve that?
So like you, the most lost I've ever been was when I didn't have a goal. And then when I do have a goal, I work so much better. And so in a reselling business, for me, where you sell an actual product, it's quite easy to work out how to get to a financial goal. You can reverse engineer it, right? If I need £10,000 and I know that net profit, I make £15 per item, I can work out how many items I have to list to sell that many items a day in how many days I need to sell it to have that amount by that date.
Okay. Now, within that, how do you manage the increased workload?
I was like a hurricane. Like, I just, boom, go in and do it.
Okay.
Which is probably not the best way. I know we're supposed to, like, have better answers to these things that are more profound, but I'm very much just like a roll up your sleeve and get in there person.
Well, just because I am who I am, I'm going to ask you, why don't you do that every day? If you want to make $45,000 in like a month and a half, why don't you do that every day?
I liked it better when I couldn't see you when you were being mean to me.
Let's not go down that path today.
I don't know. Because I think also in those moments of stress and panic, you see your full potential as well. And you realize what you're capable of. And then, it comes back to afterwards, you go back to where you're comfortable, isn't it?
Yeah. Now, what if, like, tomorrow you receive the email saying that you got 3 months left, that's it, like, and you bought the house a while ago. So if you were able to consistently be able to do that between now and then, you wouldn't matter if eBay closed tomorrow. You'd be out the door, up the road, probably 150, maybe 180,000 in your pocket. You could do a lot with that.
That's very true. Very true. there's many untaken opportunities in our lives and in our business. And then being one of it is me and you talk a lot about getting as much money out of eBay as we possibly can, but I'm not matching my effort and my input to that desired outcome.
Yeah. And I think that's the roadblock that most people find themselves in. And I guess I don't want to say it comes back to the target, but in a lot of ways it does come back to the target, because we are like, okay, I want to make £45,000, and you're going to show up today and you're going to do the work and you're going to make no more money. And then you're going to show up tomorrow and you're going to put in all that effort and work and you're going to make no extra money. And you're going to consistently do that for like a week, and then you're going to be like, well, it does work because I haven't made any extra money. And it seems hard. And it's like the gym. You go to the gym once, you're not going to have a six-pack. You go to the gym twice, you're not going to have a six-pack. You're not going to lose any weight. And then it's only around like day 90 of consistency that you can take a step back for a second and you're like, oh, wow, I have lost 10 kilos or I am making extra money. But it takes time to get through that 90 days of anything that you're doing to come out on the other side. But you have to be able and willing to commit to doing 90 days of anything to see some truth.
What I'm hearing is the difference between I have to and I want to. So I have to get that money or I need to leave my house, and then I made it happen. I want to is a conversation I have a lot with you. Like, I want to do this and I want to do this, but my dedication to my have to and my want to isn't the same.
And what will cause you to tip over, do you think, to the I have to do this?
Imminent threat.
I mean, you can psychologically convince yourself of that. Like, you're on all the conspiracy theories.
I know, but just use one of them. Eventually you just get institutionalized and they don't let you do eBay from the sideboard.
Fair. I've worked in a sideboard. There's no eBay allowed.
No. But I think what I've just realized is that all the times my business has really, really thrived is when I was in a have to situation. Yeah. And then when I'm in a want to situation, my business is still thriving, but I do tend to take it a lot slower when I know my capabilities can do so much more.
Yeah. So last week I set myself a goal just for 7 days to try doing 120 every day. And the Sunday it was fine, the Monday it was fine. Come the Tuesday, I was like, oh, do I really want that money? Come the Wednesday, like, I did everything I could to avoid it. I had a nap. Like, I did all the things, Hanley.
Yeah.
And it was because I had psychologically within 3 days already talked myself out of doing it. I pushed through it, and when you get through that like barrier, it becomes easier because you're like, oh, okay, I didn't die doing this. Like, I will survive this. And for a lot of it, it was me sitting there talking to myself, giving myself every excuse under the sun to say, you don't have to do this. Like, you make enough money. If you just stay at the level you're at, you will make more money anyway. You will hit your goals. You don't need to do all this extra stuff. But at the end of the day, if I do more now, then I can finish earlier. I can work harder now to be able to live the life that I want later, earlier, and not be on the hamster wheel that is life of the washing machine breaking, setting me back. Like, I don't want that.
So what do you think is it about human nature that defaults to try and avoid anything that's hard, even if we know the reward is great?
I don't know if it's like primal or like what it is, but like, I don't know if it's because generationally, like, our families have had to work really hard to be able to set themselves up, and then you kind of get brought up in the I'm working now so that you don't have to work as hard kind of environment post the Great Depression and the World Wars and stuff. And I think that maybe that has some sort of impact. I'm not certain though. I think it would also be slightly dependent on the person, and I know depending on where you grow up, there's a lot of like different hustle and drive that comes from getting yourself out of certain circumstances, like yourself being able to immigrate overseas. Like, that's huge. Not a lot of people get that opportunity.
I think it's twofold for me. Mm-hmm. I think first of all, we've been conditioned and told that we're weak. Like, men used to kill animals with their hands, right?
Yeah.
So in a way, we've been told, and because of conveniences of life and advances in technology and civilizations, we've become convinced that we're weaker than we actually really were made to be. And I think sometimes we see any kind of hardship as, or anything that's hard as a hardship. And those are two different things. Working hard is not a hardship. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, I do,
And I
yeah.
think the other thing is that we've also been very much told that we're entitled to more, and we have this inflated self-worth, and very much a lot of the message out there right now is like, honor yourself, love yourself, you're the best, do what you want, you're important. And we've been sold this dream and this like inflated self-worth, but they left out the part where you have to work to get it. Like, yes, I'm entitled to
Yeah.
more. I feel I'm made for more. I feel like I am made for more, and I should be able to achieve these things. But we've also told people that they don't actually have to do anything to get it.
Yeah. If you look back, and we've discussed this before, like all the ancient texts, like all the Stoics and stuff like that, talk about work being very important. But if you
Yeah.
go back even further, and Alex Hormozy talks about this a lot, that even in the Bible, God gave Adam a job before he gave him a wife, which means that
Yeah.
there is a value placed on working. The Stoics talked about it, even though there was like the differential between like gods and everything else. But there was still the need for people to work to have purpose, because man without purpose, or woman without purpose even, just people without purpose don't have direction. Like, where do you
Yes.
go if you don't have purpose? Like, yes, maybe your purpose is to raise your children in this chapter of your life, but life has chapters, life has seasons, and we're just in different seasons at different times, and we need to be able to change and not try and force against where the wind's trying to blow us. Like, for me, I'm at the kind of crossroads where I can't this will be the last year I can renew my nursing registration without having to work. So I'd have to work 6 weeks. So that would be the final like umbilical cord cut to the last chapter of my life, or I have to make the decision to put the business on hold for 6 weeks. So I would have to then officially like end one chapter of my life to fully embrace the next. And maybe part of it's just about holding on to the last season of your life because
Yeah.
you liked it then.
Yeah. I'd like to just swing back to what you said about purpose and bring this back to being but like a business owner as well. And I think for a lot of us, starting a business had a purpose when we started it. So we needed to pay bills, we wanted to contribute to the family, or for me, I
Yeah.
wanted to be able to stay home with my kids while helping to provide a certain level of lifestyle. And then most of us will kind of achieve that within the first 1 or 2 years. And then we've lost that purpose and we get comfortable.
Yep.
And this comes back to what we said last week, where we get comfortable because we've achieved the goal, we've achieved the purpose we have, we're now living in that purpose, everything's good. But the world is going ahead of us. And within 2, 3 years, we have to go back to trying to achieve what we had because we didn't grow with it.
Yeah, absolutely. And then you're almost back to zero and playing defense rather than offense.
Yes.
And like, if we know these things are always going to happen, like, there's always going to be share market, like,
Yeah.
I don't know about in the UK, but we have a thing called superannuation, which is like the 401k in the US is like your retirement fund.
Yeah.
So our companies and everything else pay into that, so that mostly it's invested into shares. So the share market's going to swing up and down. So it delays people being able to retire. Like your investments might be in that. Like personally, the property market goes up and down. Politics swings and roundabouts. Everything's going to cause some sort of distress or unrest at some aspect and element of your life. And whether that's financial or personally, you have to be able to rise above that. And you have to be able to not play defense. Like if you're playing offense every day that you wake up, you're so far ahead that none of that really impacts you or matters.
Yes. So how important is it to keep reevaluating the goal and the purpose and to keep on top of making sure that's current and that's still relevant? Because I think for me, especially, I get the most comfortable when my purpose or my goal is no longer relevant. I've achieved it, I've ticked it off, or it's no longer, do you know what I mean? And then I lose sight of that passion and that drive to grow as much as I know I'm capable of.
I'm just going to answer that question with a question. Sorry. Is it because when you're setting these new goals, which are like generational wealth, it's a statement, you don't have a vision for it. So you can't see yourself like doing it in that moment?
No, I think I'm very much confident I can do it. I just don't think I actually put enough thought into how am I going to do it. Like, I believe I'm going to get there. Have I actually sat down and drawn a roadmap? No, I'm just going to work and then I'm going to get there. Like, I know I can. I just don't think I put enough. Create goalposts to work towards. Do you know what I mean? Like little steps, break it down into the ladder of getting to the top.
Of course. So for me, if my top goal is really like vague and it's just like, oh, I want to be able to do whatever I want with my time, it doesn't make it like, okay, I need this amount of money. Like, this is the amount. So then I can't reverse engineer it backwards. So like, what do I need genuinely to be able to live the life that I want to every day? Like, what is the amount of money that I can't ruin my life with? But I can't also blow through either. Like, and then, okay, so let's say it's just for a number, $1 million a year. That's not what the goal is, but $1 million a year. What do I need to be invested in that spits off that much money per year?
Yeah.
So then you can start working back. So in 5 years, I need this much saved, this much invested, etc. How do I get that much money? And then you can work backwards to the input to be able to achieve the output. And all you have to do then is just sit back in your computer and list items on eBay.
How do you... Okay, so if we can engineer the input, and we can all do that, everyone can do that, it's great, we've all done it, we can figure out how much to do. Now we run into the problem of how the accountability side of it. A lot of us are very apt in the start. We're going to do it. We're going to crush it. Like you said, the first few days. And by Wednesday, you're like, oh, I'm going to take a nap. And then Thursday, we're back in Candy Crush. And by Friday, we've spoken ourselves out of it. Because, you know, we should actually just be living life and not chasing money. Like, people who chase money are so sad. We should just be present in the moment. I should live in the moment. I shouldn't really be doing. Do you know what I mean? And we all have these thoughts.
Yeah, absolutely.
Internet. You know, the algorithms are clever. They start spitting out whatever it is that's in your head. You know, feeding you this affirmations and confirmations of whatever your thoughts are. And so what are some helpful tools or ways that you bring that back to the goal?
Well, I'm currently so busy I don't have time for social media, so that really helps. I do think that making sure what you're consuming in terms of content, which was spoken about on this podcast before, is so positive. And we were talking before this podcast. I caught up with a friend who's going to be on the podcast in a few weeks, and she was writing a book, and she said, what lengths, the premise of the book is, what lengths will you go to ensure that you are included? Which I was like, and so if you are consuming negative, drama-filled content, then you naturally are then going to strive to be part of that community in that like energetic vibrational sort of sense, because that's what you're consuming. Like, that's what you're striving towards. Whereas if we cut that off and we listen to positive things that maybe challenge you to dream a little more, challenge you to work on accountability, time management, like those sorts of things, you can then do real life applications and you can be like, wow, I did finish at 4:30 today. That's amazing. And it compounds in a more positive sense, so that I know that come day 3, I'm going to do that. Come day 4, I'm going to do that. Come day 5 of me showing up, I'm starting to fall in the habit. And I'm like, oh, I can do this. And I have shown up for myself. And I'm starting to feel good because the results are starting to come. And it doesn't take that long. if you are able to analyze and know your numbers really well, it really starts to happen around day 7.
I've been testing out a method that's working really well for me. And I know it won't work for everyone, but I think because of the type of person I am and how much I like to think and reason and argue with myself in my head, which we covered extensively on a different episode, this has been working really
Every
well
episode.
this has been working really well for me. So I act before I think in things. So, and not
That's
in
huge.
all things, in actions I have to take. So, for instance, I'm waking up earlier. When my alarm goes off, my feet hit the ground before I can think myself out of getting up. Like, I consciously make it like move. I hear the alarm sound and I move. Okay. If I'm on the couch and I'm like, I don't want to list today, as soon as the end of that thought is hit, I'm already off the couch and moving my feet. And once I get the initial movement, I actually don't have an issue with doing it. I have this issue, and this is the issue of getting going. And so what I thought I'd do is, instead of trying to hype myself into it or motivate myself into it, I'm going to make my body move before my brain does.
So I don't believe you can motivate yourself into anything. I don't believe that's true. Mel Robbins talks specifically about what you just said. So she uses a countdown method. So when she was at the height of her depression, she couldn't get out of bed. And one day she was like, I'm just going to count down from 5 and get up. And she got up and she was like, wow, I haven't been out of bed for weeks. But she realized that when she counted down and just did the action, it didn't give herself time to talk herself out of it because she was counting. So then she just involuntarily did the motion, which I think is really powerful, that your mind is the one that talks you out of most of the things, like getting out of bed when you're sad. And you can overcome that quite easily just by playing a trick on yourself.
We don't understand the power that the mind has over the body. And that a lot of the times we let the body dictate what the mind wants to do. So I don't want to get up. I'm tired. I'm lazy. I just want to lay here. My body is saying no. But your body is just a body. Like, you can make it move. I think that's what I've realized the last couple of weeks is I can just make it move, which sounds so like, how did you not know this? I did know this. I make my body move all the time. But my body and my mind doesn't have to be in agreement. Like, my mind can be like, I'm not doing this, or get up and go. Do you know what I mean? Like, it doesn't have to. Yeah. And I found that actually very effective. There has been once or twice where I left it too long, and then I was like, see, now you've done that. You didn't put your feet. Now you've done that. And then I get up out of spite because I'm like, I'm still going to do it. You're not going to win. But I found it much more effective to just move than it is to try to think of why I want to move, why this is important to me, why I want to do this, why this needs to happen. Like, just moving works for me.
Yeah, and I would just like to remind you that not only can you get yourself up, like, if you want to do anything, Hanley, you can do whatever you want. I think we self-limit, like, if there is some sort of, like, thing that says, like, natural athleticism is very important, but what makes the great basketballers, baseball players, runners, actors is they just put in the reps. Like, you can read about playing basketball, you can watch all the documentaries about basketball, you can do all the things, but nothing will ever replace simply throwing the ball at the basket hundreds of millions of times. And it's the same as getting up and doing listings on eBay and putting one foot in front of the other. And whatever your calling is, it doesn't have to be putting listings on eBay. If you drew 1,000 pictures, by the end of it, you're going to know how to draw a picture. Like, you can do whatever you want. We just tell ourselves we can't.
And I think that's where the issue comes in of, we tell ourselves we want a certain result, but there's miscommunication between what we have to do to get to that result. And we allow these thoughts, or what the distractions, or whatever the case may be. We also tend to convince ourselves that we are putting in the work to get the the desired result. And that's because we haven't gone and made a clear path of how to get there. And then it's very easy to tell yourself, well, I did work 5 days this week, but yes, but were you productive? Was the amount of work you put in efficient to get the outcome you need? Like, it's very easy to be busy. Being busy and being productive is two different things.
Oh, 100%. Like, you could talk about that one all day. Like, I am so guilty of being a busy fool rather than being productive. And for me, one of the things I really noticed about doing 120 for a week, well, not quite a week, it's been 5 days, but one of the major things is that I can't start later in the day. Like, so I don't want to break the promise to myself. I said it was 7 days and then we'll reassess. So setting the promise and not breaking it is huge for me. That's a massive thing. But I can't wait until 5 o'clock to start that. Like, there's not enough time in the day. So I think having a goal big enough that you can't procrastinate the start time is also very important. And I'm not saying that anyone should just decide to go try and do 120 in a week and break your business and everything else if you're at 10 a day. Like, 10 a day to 20 a day is the equivalent of like 60 to 120 because it's doubling the input. But you just have to make that decision that you are going to see it through for the short period of time. And I would love to go from the 120 for 7 days to 120 for 100 days and then 120 for 500 days and just be able to reflect at each milestone and be like, this is how far I've come.
Yeah. Can we talk about that? Like the timing when it comes to input and output and how important that is as well? Because I think like that can be looked at in very different perspectives. There's one where you have to be mindful of the time it's going to take you to get to your goal. And this comes back to trying to map it out. Because if you do this 7 days a week now, you've just started it, you do it for 7 days and you don't see the desired outcome yet, a lot of people will say, no, I put in that effort, it wasn't worth it, I didn't get the money out. But like you were saying earlier, these results are only going to come later down the line. And we have to be very realistic with the time scale we have when we're trying to reach these goals and also the time frame we need to get the desired output. A lot of the times we will say, I need this amount of money or this action or whatever. And so I'm going to do this, but we're not giving it enough time. I can't make £50,000 in a week. I can't. I do not see any moral, legal way for me to do that. So I can set that goal all day long and I will only disappoint myself because we have to be realistic of our capabilities and the time that these things take to mature.
Yeah. I don't think that you could do it at this current juncture, but I wouldn't say that that's absolutely out of the question in future.
No, but you have to be mindful of your current situation. Like, will I one day do this? I 100% believe I will. I won't today.
Yeah. Do you think that comes with time? Or do you think it's maybe like a thing that we get not necessarily tricked about, but like convinced that you're going to do the task and you're just all of a sudden going to have $1 million in your bank account?
I don't know. I think it comes back to just this culture of instant gratification. We feel like we should be rewarded for everything. And if we want to take this way back, then I think participation certificates have a lot to blame in this situation. Like, you don't get rewarded for everything you do. And it's created this mindset that we feel entitled to a reward or an outcome for any type of effort we set, and we want it now.
Yeah, I don't agree. I don't necessarily think like it's made us soft or anything like that. Like, I see that there's a place for it in some ways. But I do think that it sets an unrealistic expectation. Like when you go into like a workplace and people are bidding for jobs and people are bidding for promotions and people are bidding for like first place their listing to sell on eBay, like whatever it is, there can only be one winner. But on a platform like eBay, there could be like 4,000 shirts that sell today. Like there's 4,000 winners in that occasion.
Yes.
But if you get to a point where your store's so big that you dominate searches, that's not for everyone.
Yeah.
But then some people will receive more than one of those 4,000 that sell
Yeah.
today. And that person then will ultimately win amongst people that have already won. So there is like scales to winning within business and life.
I also want to bring up another thing about making sure you get the timings right is because you have to be kind to yourself. If you're
Yeah.
constantly setting goals that aren't achievable and you aren't going to get on yourself, that would be extremely hard emotionally, mentally. If you constantly feel like you're failing because you're setting these unrealistic timelines for the desired outcome, like that would eventually just knock you down completely. You have to be kind to yourself and your capabilities and work within the time frame of what you have and what you're capable of. If I wake up every day and say I'm going to make £20,000 today and I don't do it for 365 days in a row, I'll be a wreck.
Yeah, of course.
Even
Yeah.
though it was completely unrealistic in the first place.
You give up, for sure.
Yes.
You wouldn't last very long. I wouldn't last very long if that
No.
was the goal either. Yeah.
No.
There
And
is
so I
something
think,
to be said about having grace for your goal. Like, I think that just putting it like 10-20% above where you are is a really good starting place. And then being able to knock that out gives you the confidence to then be able to go, oh, maybe 50% is achievable. Like, you have to allow yourself the space to trial and error, and like maybe you don't get it right the first day, the first week, but the more that you can be totally consistent and accountable to the reasons why you missed it, the more
yeah.
you'll be able to hit it the next time.
I think that's the only way you get the right balance between pushing yourself and growing and also having grace with yourself is if you have accountability. Because one of the two can very quickly get out of hand. You can push yourself too hard, force yourself to do too much, and completely like wreck yourself in your business because no one's checking you, you're not checking yourself, you're not. And on the other hand, you can have so much grace with yourself that you just stop doing anything completely because you're just like, I should be kind to myself, but don't I want to be kind to myself all day and say you don't have to work? You deserve to be a kept woman. You deserve to live in a castle with people doing your housework for you. You deserve this. Go back to bed. You don't need to work. See, this is why I can't think in the mornings before I get up because I'll just be in bed all the time. But I think both of the aspects can just take over so quickly that you need all three of them together. You need drive and ambition and to push yourself. You need to have grace and kindness with yourself. And you need to have accountability to be able to bring it all together in a right balance.
I think for me, accountability is probably the most important. I have had to learn to be very good at holding the mirror up to myself and being very real with myself, which isn't easy. And sometimes in the past, when people have reflected things back to me, I haven't liked what I've seen. So I've been defensive about it. But deep down, like your subconscious, like the bottom of the iceberg of your mind, knows that's true. That's why you're acting that
Yeah.
way. So if we want to like get like deeply psychological about it, like the only way that you're going to be able to make it easy to achieve your goal is to get down to like the subconscious and tell yourself within that space, like, this is what we do. This is how we're going to provide for our family. This is how we're going to live in a castle and have apparently maids and chefs is to get down to the root of who you are. Because in psychology, they say that only like 20% of your actual thoughts that you hear make up your mind. Like 80% is your subconscious. So most of what happens is deep down outside of what you think on a day-to-day basis. So you really need to get to like the root of who you are.
This has been so fascinating, like diving into your mind on these things and like hearing how you think about things in Russian. And you do think very deeply about things. Like I think that's why I enjoy having conversations with you, is you tend to look at things from so many different aspects. And I am just more of like I don't want to say I'm black and white because I'm not, but
I'm very black and white.
You don't sound it though. Like the way you think and go into things and consider things, and I think for me, if I had to do that daily, I would just be completely paralyzed. Like if I had to spend a day in your mind, I wouldn't be able to move for like a week after.
It's
Just like,
exhausting.
I can
I think
imagine.
I think because I'm so black and white, I have to accumulate every piece of knowledge I possibly can to then be able to make the black and white decision so that it's not ambivalent and grey, because I don't
Yeah.
function well in grey. So the more I can learn and educate and gather other people's opinions, then I can formulate what I believe is the best course of action for myself.
And so to round us out on this very interesting trip into Samsbury, what is your top tips you would give people with regards to input versus output and how to translate that into successfully reaching goals? It doesn't just have to be business goals, but any goals.
So you need to be like laser focused with your goal. Like, don't be ambivalent, and you need to reverse engineer it. So if your goal is like to have a 6-pack of abs, and you don't work out your core muscles and you only do arms as your input, you're never going to achieve the output. Just like if my goal is to make $10,000 and I only make $10 profit and I'm only listing 20 things a day, I'm never going to be able to achieve that outcome. So you need to be laser focused about what the outcome is to be able to work back to work out what this specific input needs to be to reach that outcome. Then you need to be able to work back to find out the timeline in that. Like, you need to consume content to work out, like, the tech and sports techonomic would be the perfect one to work out how to manage the finances, get to the bottom line, and how fast that can grow. I really like that video. I listen to that quite regularly. And I think it's going to be hard, but you need to, every day before I do this, like every day before I go to sleep, I have to get real with myself and say, okay, did I do it? Did I not do it? Why? Why not? Don't lie to yourself, because you're not going to feel good if you lie to yourself.
Yeah.
It's easier to be very honest with yourself when it's only you in your mind. That it's better if you write it down, but if you have a conversation with yourself, and if you can say to yourself, hey, you did a really great job today, like, you're going to go to sleep and you're going to feel great. And then the next day you're going to be able to wake up and smash it out. So those would be my top tips.
Well,
Do you have
so
any
good.
to add?
And with that, the bus is back at the bus stop. Thank you for coming on this ride. That was incredible. I love hearing you talk about things like that. I didn't.
Do you have any?
I was
Do you
gonna
have any?
say I didn't even go off the track once, but I did, didn't I? When I forgot my glasses. That was really.
You derailed us for like 4 minutes.
My apologies, people. We were trying to have a very serious conversation, but I was also trying to see her while she was talking to me. So thank you so much, Sam, for sharing with us. I don't know why I'm thanking you. This is your job. You're literally one of the co-hosts. Like, you should be doing this.
Where'd you show up?
If you guys have any more questions for Sam, I know a lot of people said how helpful they found a lot of the points she was making, and we have some more written down that we're going to go through. But if you guys do have other topics or questions or conspiracies about eyewear, then just drop them in the comments below, and we thank you so much for watching.